React provides methods that you can use to execute bits of code at certain moments in a component's lifetime. In this video, we're going to take a look at the component lifecycle, and we'll take a look specifically at the mounting lifecycle. We're going to be grabbing some data from the randomuser.me API. We've already pulled some pictures from here, but we're actually going to connect to this API to load some data. So the first place I want to start is in our member list component. And the member list component should, instead of having this data hard-coded here, we're just going to set members equal to an empty array. The next state variable that we want to set up is loading, and we want to set it equal to false. So the initial state of our application will have loading as false, and then we're going to use another method that is going to trigger that loading process. The way that we're going to load this data is using fetch. Now, since I included this for you already, we don't have to npm install it. That should have worked when you hit npm install on the entire package.json file. And what fetch is going to allow us to do is connect to that API pretty simply. Now, the first method I'm going to add here is component did mount. Component did mount is going to fire as soon as the render method fires for the first time. During this, we're going to set the loading state to true because our data is loading. Excellent. We're also going to use fetch. Now, the first thing that we're going to send into fetch is the API. So the API route is going to be the argument that we pass in here as a string. Let's make sure that we get it right. And we're going to use api.randomuser.me / we're going to look for the US nationality, and we're going to say results equals 12. You can specify however many results as you'd like here. 12 just looks nice in our app. So fetch is going to then have this then function, and the then function fires once we've connected to the API. So first, we're going to receive the response from the API. We're going to turn this response into JSON. We'll use another .then function, and we'll take that JSON response, and we're going to look for the key results. So this is just part of the API. There's a key called results that we need to look through. Then we're going to take these results, and we're going to use it to set the state. So we'll say this.setState. And the object that we're going to pass in here is going to reset members. So using members is the same thing as using members equals members. In ES6, we have object literal enhancement, so we don't need to use both. And then we'll say loading is equal to false. Excellent. So the next thing I want to do here is we'll scroll down and make sure that loading is also added to our state. We've destructured loading as well. And we're going to, right beneath society members, give us a visual cue about whether or not the data is loading. So we'll say, if loading is true, then I want to return a span that says loading. If loading is false, then we're going to print the number of members in a span. So we'll say members.length members. Cool. So now we can make some adjustments to our member data. Instead of just populating things, we're going to actually drill down into those keys that are part of the API. So here we're going to say if members length is true, so if there are any members in state, then we're going to map over our members, and we're going to create new members for each member in state. So let's change data here to member. So our argument is going to be member instead. Then I'm going to go ahead and remove those other attributes from member so that we can set this up right. So the first property I'm going to pass down is name. So we'll use member.name.first plus a space plus member.name.last. So how do I know where that data comes from? It's just determined by the API. We're looking in the name key for another key called first. Then we're going to pass down email. So we'll say member.email. And then we'll say thumbnail equals member.picture.thumbnail. Excellent. So this is our condition if members.length is true. We also want to specify a false condition though. So we will add a span here that just says currently 0 members. And we'll close our tag. Awesome. So we have rendered our members, we've passed that data down. So when we pull up localhost 3000, we should see all of our components rendering. Pretty cool. Now let's add 2 more methods to our member file. So we're going to add a couple things here to demonstrate a few other methods that are part of that mounting lifecycle. The first of these is component will mount. This means that this will fire right before our first initial render. So right before the render, we're going to set the style to be background color gray. Great, so now I can use style equals this.style. So now I should see that the background color is being loaded right before the initial render. Great, so now we have all of our members being loaded appropriately. In the next video, we're going to talk about the updating lifecycle and we'll incorporate this members list into the actual app.